John Schneider gets the first crack at hiring a head coach, Dave. This is a big moment for him because he's not a new guy, but he's never had the opportunity to hire a head coach. So what's weird is he's been here for 14 years, but this is a first for him. And I'm wondering how much pressure is there to get it right? Because you're not the new guy where I don't know that he gets the same slack as a new guy would, if you will. Like, it feels like there's pressure. You got to get this right, man. You've been here a very long time, and it just feels different than a new GM being brought in. If they would have gotten rid of the head coach and the GM, and here's the new regime, there's some grace period. I don't know if you have that after being in the organization for 14 years. Do you?
No, it's a ton of pressure, and I think the other thing is that people are going to think, the years that John, that we think anyway, that he was fully in control of the draft. He got guys like KJ Wright in the 5th round and Cam Chancellor in the 4th round, Sherm, and then, this year I just thought it was a brilliant pick taking Devin Witherspoon at number 5, mainly because, not a big guy, not a guy that, people thought was going to get drafted that high. And we were pretty set on corners. And so I think there's going to be lots of pressure on John, not only to get it right, but also to, I think because of that, because he's had those selections that, worked out, and you go, wow, 5th round. To me, that's always very interesting. The first, and I always pose this question, what's more fascinating, the 1st round flop, like the top 5 pick, like Aaron Curry was number 9, is that more fascinating, or how does Doug Baldwin not get drafted? And he's a free agent. And so, I mean, that's the kind of dynamic I think everybody is going to be looking for John. And this is the biggest, when you pick a guy in the draft, you go look at the draft and what other people draft. It doesn't work out a lot of times. Mm-hmm. But, as far as getting the coach, that's, and not only is it a big deal, but it's also, I think there's lots of pressure on him because they're like, oh, okay, he's going to go get some kind of genius, and we're just going to go out there and just start winning games. And it might take a while, I mean, I don't know if you've thought about that. Like, what do you expect out of this team? We don't know exactly what it's going to look like.
Well, so go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I mean, like linebacker. I mean, all of a sudden, for the first time in years, they're looking pretty thin at linebacker if they don't bring Bobby back and Jordan is hurt. So, yeah, there's lots of holes to fill, and maybe it takes them a year or two to kind of build it back up and get going again.
Yeah, I don't know if people. I think if you're of the belief they underachieved, that they were more talented than what they put on the field this year, than what their record says, then I don't know that they have a ton of grace period in terms of, oh, well, yeah, first year they go, 7-10 or something, and that's okay. Because you're not rebuilding. You're bringing in it doesn't mean you have new players every year. So, yeah, maybe there's new linebackers. We'll see if if Bobby's back, if Jordan Brooks is back because he's a free agent. Devin Bush is a free agent. You don't really have linebackers, so to speak. So, yeah, maybe those are all new faces. But by and large, you got your running backs, you got your quarterback, you got your wide receivers, your O-line. There's going to be different pieces that are replaced, but this isn't a rebuild, so I don't know how much patience there is for a losing season, if you will, with a new. I think the expectation from somebody who thinks they underachieved, the expectation is, okay, now we've got somebody here, whoever that is, to bring this team up to their potential, to play to their potential, which they did not do last year, if that's their opinion.
I think you're right about that. I don't think they played up to their potential, and there were certain guys that took a step back. But yeah, I mean it's a tremendous amount of pressure because also we talked about with Pete and how we've been kind of spoiled here. 10 times trips to the playoffs in 14 years, and again, like you said, it's not like the Mariners, although people are quite impatient, I think, about that. But yeah, it's going to be,
they should be.
Yes, exactly. And if they're not, then Bob will pistol whip you into submission.
Say, what's wrong with
what
you?
What is wrong with you? Yeah. But I think that's all part of it. But I think more than anything, and maybe this is just me, I think the pressure, a lot of it's going to come from, okay, you got KJ Wright and Richard Sherman in the 4th and 5th round. Let's see. And I got to say, I can't wait to see who the new coach is. This is really, it's like Christmas Eve. I'm like waiting to see who is this guy going to be. And then what are the reasons? Because John's going to come out and say, we like this, we like that, he did this, that. I mean, it's going to be somebody entirely new. We're going to be finding out. It's going to be like going back to 2010.
Yeah.
And I think there's going to be some skepticism, because there was skepticism about Pete, which is hard to believe if you go back and look at his record at USC. I was talking about how if there was a couple of overtime wins that going backwards, that if you would have extended that streak from the time that they lost in the Rose Bowl to Texas, USC that is, that he was coaching, and go back and a couple of these overtime wins, you got like a 47, 48 game win streak. I mean, Pete was incredible in college, yet we were skeptical. We were like, oh boy, here's the rah-rah guy, and how's this going to work out? And, look at his, his track record in the NFL. So, yeah, whoever that is, I think, if it's not somebody that, is popular or somebody thinks, I'm like, you had Dan Quinn, why didn't you get him? And it's some guy that's like Slowick or somebody that a lot of people haven't heard of. It's gonna take a while.
Yeah, it will. I feel like and by the way, I was on the Pete bandwagon, but only because I feel like I was not objective, because I was in L.A. while he was there.
You saw it.
Yeah, but I didn't know he would be here for 4 years. I'm not going to say I knew he would win a Super Bowl, and I was just excited because of who he was and what he had accomplished at USC while I was there. Yeah. So I was a bit, I wasn't totally on the outside being objective. So I was like, yeah, I like it, and I was kind of surprised when everybody was like, I don't love this. I'm like, what? This is great, but I had no sense he would be here for 14 years and win a Super Bowl. I just loved what he did at USC. But anyway, the as far as Dan Quinn goes, it feels like that, just in terms of opinion, just in terms of what I see people talking about, what they text into the show, what they tweet, that last Cowboy game seems to have shaped a lot of opinions, because it felt like there was a lot more excitement about the potential of his return, because that was the glory days. Those were the glory days when he was in charge of the defense, when Gus Bradley was in charge of the defense. That was the golden era, if you will, of this run with Pete. So they attached that to him. And then you see the Cowboys go out there and get blistered, and now we get all these texts coming in, which is fine. You feel how you feel, but it's a big shift into no. I don't want Dan Quinn. Give me this guy. Give me Johnson. Give me McDonald. Give me basically anybody but him. And it feels like that is a bit of. I'm not trying to tell you it wasn't bad. Yeah, it was a terrible game, but it's a bit of recency bias as well, isn't it? I mean, that was one of the better defenses in the league, especially at home. It was a bad night. No two ways around it, but it's amazing how that one game has shaped a lot of opinions.